Welcome to Becoming Parents podcast. I'm Jen Taylor, your host. I am mom of 18, and you can find me on momsrunningit.com. Remember, give a shout out to those who are brave enough to share their stories with us on how they have become parents. Let's dive right in. Today, yay, I'm on with Miranda Oh. How are you?
I'm fantastic. And yourself?
Great. I was so excited when I saw your name on the calendar this morning because we've known each other for a couple of years now.
Yep.
You were on originally April 3rd, 2020. So it's been almost
hmm
2 years.
hmm
And on that one, it was awesome because it was back when it was, the podcast was a little different. We talked about your struggle, and now it's
hmm
about parenting. So a year before that interview, you were diagnosed. And right at that interview, book 3 came out.
Yep.
I don't think I read book 3. I'll have to look on my Amazon account because I always
That's
read everybody's books.
that's okay. If not, I'll mail a signed
Oh
copy
my
just so
gosh,
I'll
that'd
let
be
you know.
so good. That's what I'm choosing. So I've read your books, they're incredible. And I love your story. And on this time we're going to talk about life when you got that diagnosis. Because
hmm
you were you were in a not healthy relationship, and that was a big part of your, like, I guess, I don't know, would you call it growing up? And
Oh yeah, totally. Growing
yeah.
up and discovery and experience, and got to learn to love yourself first in order to be in a successful relationship. So like lots has changed since we last spoke. Like when we did record that podcast, I was in Mexico with my mom and
Yeah.
like single and loving it, and now I have a partner and we have a 1-year old and we live in the country. Like there's just so much that has happened,
Yeah.
but it's just gotten so much better. So yeah, I'm excited to be here and kind of update everybody.
Jump in on your diagnosis because we're
Yeah.
talking about the parenting journey. You had a very different diagnosis. The diagnosis was when you were single?
Yes. So
So tell us about that.
I was diagnosed with endometriosis and adenomyosis just around my 30th birthday. And next month I turn 33. So just, a couple of years down the road now. And I was basically told that my reproductive organs were not working the way that they should be working. That's the lining in your uterus, those cells started to show up outside of my uterus, which was causing pain and internal bleeding, and which could then cause infertility and a whole slew of problems. And I was experiencing a lot of that. And as part of being a woman, like you were born with a uterus, so you kind of just biologically think at some point you should be a mom, whether or not you want to be, but there's always that thought that crosses our mind.
Mhm.
And I had kind of written it off, going like, hey, like I'm single, I'm 30, I am definitely not where I wanted to be in that motherly aspect of my life. So I said, you know what, if I'm 35 and still single, then what I'll do is I'll just adopt. Or if I do meet somebody and I don't even want to go down that road, I don't want to try, like I don't want to just be heartbroken over and over and over again, so I'll just adopt. Like I had put my mind 100% into it, that it's okay, like I won't be a biological mom, and that just wasn't meant to be part of my story in this life. And I was proved really wrong really quickly. So yeah, it when I launched book 3 after getting that diagnosis, I had met somebody, and then the lockdown happened and everything closed, right? Like the beginning of 2020, everything was closed. So I wasn't able to go see my naturopath, my massage therapist, my acupuncture, my dietitian. Like all of those practitioners were part of my routine in order to keep me healthy, because after I had gotten the surgery to get the diagnosis, it was like, okay, great. So we cut out the endometriosis, but like it could grow back. And the adenomyosis is embedded in the wall of your uterus. So really the only way that we can get rid of it is to remove your uterus. And if you want to try to have kids one day, then we're just going to leave it there. So when I had met my partner and everything was going great, and we had obviously open discussions from actually date one, I showed up. I looked like I was 4 months pregnant because I had bloating like nobody's business. I had to take medication to help me with the pain. And I show up on our first date and he called me out on it. He's like, I can tell you're in pain today. And I'm like, oh, do I look bad? And he's like, no. Just, you kind of have this glossed over look on your eyes. Thank you to, pain medication. Couldn't hide that one very well. And so we were really open about it and discussed it. And then when the lockdown happened, I wasn't able to go see those practitioners. So I started flaring a lot more.
Right.
And I kind of hit a wall. I said, listen, like we're either going to try get pregnant or I'm getting my uterus taken out. Like it's getting evicted. So what we did was we went to Google. Right? Because Google solves all problems. We Google searched what kind of questions we should ask each other before starting a family. And this was like 5 months into our relationship. And like, so totally unconventional. But we came up with a list of 30 questions and had them written down and got a big pot of tea and sat down on the couch together and just went through one by one by one. And it went from like everything from cloth diapers to regular diapers to what your dream as a family, like what does a family dream look like? What are the roles of a mom and a dad in your mind? Religion, what do we want to discuss with our kids? How do we want to discuss it with our kids? Discipline, like we went through all the deep corners, and that conversation could have been really bad or it could have been really good. And it ended up being really good. We were aligned on a lot of things. And coming from two very different backgrounds, it was enlightening that we were aligned on a lot of the big moral compass topics that we discussed. And so at that point, we sat down with all my medical professionals, explained to them what we were going to try to do, and that we had this plan. If it wasn't going to work in 6 months, then we needed to see a fertility specialist at the 6-month mark. It wasn't like try for 6 months and then get on a waiting list for a fertility. Like it was, I'm either seeing a doctor at the 6-month mark or we're not doing it anymore. After that, we sat down with our families, discussed that like, hey, this is new for everybody, but this is the path that we've chosen. And everybody was super receptive to it, which makes it a lot easier, especially if you're close with your family. And then boom, like 60 days later, I peed on several sticks and all of them came positive. And I called him. I was like, hey, you got to get home right now. Like right now. And he's like, oh my God, what's wrong? Are you having a flare? Do we need to go to the hospital? I'm like, we just got to talk about something. And he goes, oh my gosh. So got home.
Wow.
And I showed him and then the rest was history. Like it was a wild year 2020. We got pregnant, we sold the condo that I was living in downtown, moved out to the country, got a house, and then 9 months later welcomed a baby girl into this world, and it's just been a whirlwind since then.
So going back to the infertility, which I totally understand, a lot of women, I have a daughter that's included in this. This is how I started infertility. You're having so many issues with your cycles that you start trying to figure out why and what the issue is, right? And so you're not going through infertility necessarily to get pregnant, although probably all the tests and like day surgeries that you had are the exact same ones they have, because my daughter is 30 also, and she's just turning 30. She's gone through the exact same surgery. She's done a couple different, and I've done a couple different, but the bulk of them, the bulk of what we've done, they just don't put you on the medication to get pregnant, to increase your chances. So you're going through that as a single person. What I love about that is that you got to hash it out and decide how you felt about it. It's a very emotional thing to find out that you probably can't have kids. And 2 of my girls have been told that. And I was told that. So I get like, that's a really emotional thing to go through, and to be able to like process that and decide what you want your life to look like moving forward is awesome. That's awesome. Because going into that relationship, you were like, look, this probably isn't going to look like you think it's going to look.
Yeah. And you know what, my partner, he was like, okay, I know you have processed and thought of your life one way because you have been told infertility is a thing. And I said, yes. And he goes, I see my life as being a biological father. So he's just like, and I believe in my heart, in my soul, in every ounce of my being that this will happen for us. And it's going to be a lot easier than you expect it to be. And I was like, don't put those false positives into my head, because I don't want to start to believe that it's going to be easy for us and then be disappointed, because then you're going to have to pick up a whole slew of Miranda, who's a disaster. And I've already worked through that disaster and I've already come to terms with it. And he goes, okay, I won't put it in your head, but he's like, I know in my head and my heart how I feel. So he's like, let's just go at it with no pressure. Let's just see what happens. And then when it did happen, he kind of gave me like that, I told you, but in a jesting way. And I was like, okay, fine. So I will learn to listen to your gut and to your intuition, but I also have to protect my own soul and my own heart. And he goes,
Right.
you do what you got to do. I'll support you no matter what. But he's just like, I will always tell you what my gut and my intuition tells you or tells me, because you would do the same thing. Like, you're going to tell me what your intuition and your gut feels like. And that's why we work well as a partnership. Whether or not we believe each other at that point, it's okay. We support each other in how we feel. And so like, he never ever, and to this day, does not think that it will be difficult. And I'm like, hey, you can believe that and I trust in you, but I still got to keep my reservations and just protect my balance, like my mental
Yeah.
sanity, because it is a big thing. Like, if you go through a loss, or you go through, trying for months and there's negative tests and this and that, it's difficult to stay positive. But he's been right so far. So keep knocking on wood. And I'm like,
So you're
darn you.
pregnant. Yeah, because you were pregnant within 60 days. I mean, like,
Yeah.
that's astounding. So, okay, that's a good "I told you so." That
Yeah.
we're totally cool with that. He's allowed
Yeah.
to say that, like,
Yep.
"Okay, yeah, you are the man,
Yeah.
whatever."
Woohoo.
So then now you also know that at some point you're gonna probably sign up for the hysterectomy.
Oh, yes. Yeah, oh, yeah. I
And
was
I
asking
did
about
that.
it. Yeah.
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 Let me tell you, you don't realize how bad you feel till you don't feel bad anymore, and
Yeah.
I hadn't felt good since I was 15, and I got my hysterectomy at 33,
Yep.
and oh my gosh, like, what a nightmare situation. So it was the best thing I ever did.
Oh, yeah.
However, I had time to get pregnant and all of that stuff, which now you have. So yes, that's a back burner to treat things long term.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. It's always about, like, you're kind of told that from the beginning, right?
Mhm.
As soon as you get the endometriosis or adenomyosis a diagnosis, you're like, so hysterectomy can, like, remove a lot of your issues. And I'm like,
Yep.
well, okay, great. So, like, if I have a lung problem, just like remove my lung and then it will get rid of all my issues. Like, no other medical condition is dealt with that way.
Mhm.
So it was always like, okay, how can I alternatively take care of myself without starting to remove my organs, especially since, getting pregnant was easy for me the first time, or easy for us the first time.
Mhm.
I'm like, I want to continue kind of this holistic and alternative healing approach, keep my mind as positive as I can and balanced, as, like, that's a big mental game with this.
Yep.
um and then as soon as we're done having children, like, I'm calling my gynecologist going like, hey, like, so how fast after delivery can I get the uterus taken out? Like, can I get
Right.
it taken out after I give birth? Like, is that, like, can we just do it all in one?
Right.
He's like, slow your roll, girl. And I'm like, well, no, like, it is an inevitable thing. It's
Right.
happening. I don't want to live like this. It was 6 weeks after I gave birth, I got a period. It was terrible. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's after, like, postpartum as well. So I'm not only postpartum tired, but now I have thyroid problems that is causing me an extra layer of tired. Plus you're cramping, plus you're bleeding for the first time in like 10 months. Like, it was just all of this hit me at once. And I was like, this sucks. I do
Right.
not like this.
So let's talk about that now. Tell me, were there any issues or complications or interesting weird things with the pregnancy? How was the delivery? And then let's talk about the after
Yeah,
the
for
delivery.
sure. You know what? Honestly, I got sick once. That
Okay.
was like, knock on wood. it was one day I had morning sickness, and then I got a really bad, like contraction type cramping about 6 weeks into my pregnancy. So I went to urgent care, and they're like, do you need morphine? Do you need this? Like, we're going to take an ultrasound, but like, we got to get your pain under control. And I said, hold on a minute. I said, time out. I'm used to this pain. I am just not used to being pregnant and in this pain. So I need you to just confirm with me that the fetus is actually embedded in the wall of my uterus and not just chilling out in my fallopian tube. Like, that's why I'm here. I just need you to confirm that, you know, of course, my body's creating more blood. More blood in my uterus is going to cause pain. My uterus is stretching and growing. It's going to cause pain because it's full of disease. So I'm like, I know the science as to why I'm hurting. I just need you to confirm that that's there. And so they did, and they gave me the peace of mind. And I was like, okay, good. I was very disconnected throughout my entire pregnancy. I have a cousin who had a daughter just a month after my baby was born. And so we were pregnant at the same time. And she was very connected to her baby during the pregnancy, and I was like, it's a fetus. Like,
well, okay.
Right. Like, I was so scared that something was going to happen. So I did not want to connect myself with it. And it bugged a little bit of like, it bugged my mom a little bit. It, you know, some of my coworkers were like, you know, it is a baby at this point. I'm like, it is not my baby until it comes out and it is breathing. Until then, like, I love it. I'm good, but it's an it, and it's a thing. It's a foreign body in my object, or in my, it's a foreign object in my body.
Right.
And so I had a very weird approach to it, a very disconnected approach to it. But then, you know, as soon as she came out, I was all in for it.
Is that because you worried about complications and pain, and you wanted to kind of, I get it.
100%. I was so worried that, you know, this is too good to be true. So I don't want to get excited. I just want to coast is clear. And you know what? We didn't announce the pregnancy on social media.
No kidding.
Like, hi, all of a sudden I have a kid. And, you know, because we went about it in a non-conventional way. So we both were like, I don't want to get social media flack, especially from people that don't know us. That hadn't seen us, either of us, in years. You know, going like, oh wow, you just knocked this girl up, or like, you just get, but like, actually no, it was strategically planned. It was well discussed. Like, so we went about it very differently. And so the people in our lives, in our day-to-day lives, knew about it. And I told my partner, and I said, I want this because if something happens, I need the support of my family and my friends to help me deal with the loss. Like, I was preparing worst case scenario through the whole pregnancy. And then, you know, I got really tired, like more tired than they say it's normal. I don't know. I slept through like most of my second trimester, and I ate everything. Like, I was hungry from the moment I got up to the moment I went to bed, and I dreamt of food. They're like, yeah, gained 35 pounds in a pregnancy, times that by 2. And there I am. And I was like, you know what? I'm okay with it. My doctor's like, you're okay. Just do what you got to do. Stay positive. Because I was going to appointments by myself.
Yeah.
COVID, you know, and so I just, luckily my partner, he's a doctor as well. So he calmed me all the way through. If I had like a hiccup of emotion, we would talk about it. He would calm me down, and I was good. So when I was going to my doctor's appointments, I was already calmed down because I had asked the questions to my partner before I went to my actual doctor. And then when we got to the labor and delivery, it was kind of, I don't want to say spectacular, but it was spectacular. Like, I went in false labor 2 weeks before she was born, and they gave me a little cocktail of medication and sent me home. And I was like, okay. And then I actually finished my corporate job on Friday at 5:00 and was starting mat leave. And at 6:30-ish, I went into labor. And I was like, oh, I thought it was a poo cramp. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was just like poo moving through my intestines. So I was like, you know what? I'll just track it. But again, 2 weeks prior, false labor. So I
Right.
didn't want to freak out. My mom and dad had come over for dinner. So they were there, and I knew my mom, as soon as she knew I was in labor, she was just going to go like, "Wah!" And so I was tracking my contractions on my app on my phone, and I texted my partner, who was 2 feet away from me, going like, "I think I'm in labor, but like tracking things now." He just says, "Keep calm. If you need something, speak up, but keep calm and do your thing. And in an hour, we'll see how you're going." And about 45 minutes into tracking my contractions, my mom figured out what I was doing. And then she was like, "Oh my God." And she was like, "Get in the car, let's go." And she's packing my bags and like hurling us into the vehicle. And my partner's like, "Hold on a minute. Like, I just got to make sure we have everything that we're meant to have. Like, just,
Right.
I don't want to rush on your time. We don't want to rush. So I'm taking my time." So my mom and my dad and I are in the car with the dog, and we're waiting for my partner, and he's just standing there staring into the house. You know how sometimes you do that just to
Yeah.
make sure you're not forgetting something? And
Yeah.
they're like, beep the horn, and I'm laughing, and he's like, "Just calm down." It was quite an entertaining ride into the city to get to the hospital. And then triage wanted to send me home, and we're like, "No, we live out of town. It's like, it's still wintry out. It's Canada."
Yeah.
So beginning of March last year, middle of March last year. So we're like, we're not going home. Like, this is it. We know this is it. And when we got into the labor and delivery room, everything couldn't have gone more smoothly. We had about 10 nurses come in and out, and we actually brought a gift. I'm a sucker for sucking up. So you treat me better, even though that shouldn't make a difference, but it always does make a difference, whether or not you want to admit it. So we brought a box full of tea bags, coffee Keurigs, chocolates, pens, little notepads, little coupons for ASICS runners, because, you know, good footwear for nurses are super important. And then just a little thank you card for, like, you know, thank you for helping us bring our baby into this world. Like, we couldn't do it without you. And so we got an influx of nurses coming in. We're like, "Oh my God, look at my new pen. And I took a chocolate, and thank you so much. And like, how can we help you?" And it was really wonderful. I had a great time in between contractions. My body would convulse when I'm in a lot of pain. My body shivers. So I started singing "Shake It Like a Polaroid Picture" in between my contractions. They're like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I am coping. Just let me have it." And then when she came out, I sang "We Are the Champions." I don't sing well, so it was like high pitched and squeaky. And my partner was just like, "Yep, that's why I love her." And yeah, it was, I think I went in about 8:30 at night, and she was born just after 4 o'clock in the morning. And then a little angel happened. So my brother's father-in-law passed away 40 minutes after my daughter was born.
Mm.
And he was very sick and unresponsive for a few days prior. So we kind of, my brother-in-law was with his dad during this whole thing. And so when he got the word that our daughter was born, he whispered into his dad's ear that the baby was arrived and baby was safe and happy and healthy. And he squeezed my brother-in-law's hand and passed on to the other side. So
Wow.
it was a very emotional 24 hours for everybody in the family. But now we kind of say, like, our daughter has a guardian angel looking over her all the time because of that. And it's truly the way it happens. I swear, she talks to spirits all the time. Like, she'll just talk to herself all the time. It's great.
So I love that the pregnancy and the delivery went well, and
Yeah.
then she was born. And like, I've known you for a couple of years, and I'm not awesome at keeping up on social media, but
Neither am
all of a
I.
sudden there was this picture of you. I think it was you. I know you were pregnant in one picture,
Yep.
but I don't know if it was like, "Oh, by the way, I'm like about to have a baby." I'm like, "How have I missed this?" So I didn't. And then it was like, "Ta-da, she's here."
Yep.
So that was a surprise. And then she's how old now?
She'll be a year in a few days. So like
Okay, so I
basically a year.
thought so. She's so in the last year, there's been a lot of transitions because, like you said, you were diagnosed with Hashimoto's. You
Yep.
weren't feeling well. You and I talked a bunch at that point.
Yes.
And you bring home a baby. Here's what I think. I don't think women realize. I remember a woman saying, like, why doesn't anybody tell you that your hip stretch never go back? Why doesn't, like, one, would you believe them? And two, would it matter? Like, and there's this list of 50,000 symptoms. You may have
Right.
0 or 50,000, and you may
Yep.
throw in a couple of your own.
Yep.
Like, there's not really a way to prepare a woman entirely to how your body is going to feel and respond,
Yep.
and emotionally how you're going to feel and respond, because we're all so different. So
Yep.
let's spend the last few minutes talking about how you got through this first year. Maybe it's just the first few months that were the most difficult, because this wasn't COVID. You weren't
Mm-mm.
seeing some of your practitioners.
No.
So take us through that, because you didn't have a quote normal experience with this.
No, I have really bad migraines. I've always had them. When I was a teenager, I had a bout of them, and I lose vision. I get really nauseous. They basically like incapacitate me.
Mhm.
And so I had a bout when I was a teenager. I had a bout after my divorce and separation. And the doctor kind of diagnosed me with PTSD around those migraines. My migraines were psychological. So when I started actually talking about my problems, I was able to balance that mental chemical and,
Awesome.
balance out. And then I got an IUD as part of my endometriosis and adenomyosis treatment. And that hormone imbalance nearly killed me. I think I was in
Yeah.
the hospital like 7 times in 9 days with terrible migraines. Like I went into the doctor, I said, if you do not fix this, I don't want to leave this hospital. Like it's done. And he's like, maybe you should see a psychologist. I'm like, I have been seeing my psychotherapist throughout this whole time. You tell me my pain is in my head. My psychotherapist is telling me my pain is real. And she's been dealing with me a lot longer than you have. So when I started getting these migraines, I had no idea what was wrong. I said, are they psychological or are they hormonal? And I think that's when I reached out to you going like, Lord, help me. Like, I
Right.
don't know what is going on with me. I was getting them to the point where I was sick. I was unable to take care of my child. I was trying to nurse her, but I wasn't getting sleep. I was so tired. So I wasn't producing enough milk. And I remember calling my parents because my partner had to work through this. I'm like, hey, my partner went to work an hour ago. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. She's asleep. She's fine. But if she wakes up, I can't. Like
Right.
I am unable to take care of my child. So I got a migraine every single day for 90 days straight. And through a lot of experimentation with going to acupuncture, going to massage, trying to get sleep, so bottle feeding, fitting in formula, like all those pressures, I'm like, just keep my kid fed. I don't care. And nothing was working. And I had finally found an onset medication that was safe for me to take while I was nursing. But at that point, by the time I had found that medication with my doctor and was able to take it on the onset, it was still taking about 2 hours out of my day of just serious pain. So I had to slow down my nursing like almost completely. And, that was actually when my doctor had diagnosed me with Hashimoto's as well. So the first like 4 months after I think I got about 10 great days. Like I was like, oh, I can do this, but I think it's the adrenaline. Like you're a new parent, you have this new life, nothing can stop you. You don't feel tired. You're beyond tired. And then once I started getting those migraines and like the 90 days after that, it was really tough for me to just do the bare minimum. And that was really difficult for me to mentally manage, because I looked at my partner. I'm like, how am I supposed to be a mom if I can barely take care of myself? Like this child is my responsibility. It's ours, but she's my
Mhm.
responsibility, and I cannot even get out of bed. And he goes, you know what? It's just a phase. Like
Yep.
You
Yep.
are okay. And then one day it was like 90 days. And my gynecologist told me hormones take 90 days to balance out. He told me that when we put the IUD in. So in my mind, I'm like, get to 90 days, get to 90 days, get to 90 days. And it was like 90 days. And then I got my first 24 hours with no migraine. And I was like, whoa. Then the next day, no migraine. Then the next day, no migraine. And as soon as they stopped coming, it was like this weight lifted off of me. And I was this veil, like this dark sheet. And I was able to get out and go walking again, be outside more. It was summertime at that point. So I went to the park, walked in the park, walked through the bush with my kid. I'd power walk with her on top of me. I walked 200 kilometers in the month of July, and I did not lose 1 pound. Thank you,
Okay. That's
Hashimoto's.
okay. So, I mean, here's the good news for the next time around. Hopefully, there's no pandemic, so you have
Yeah.
better access to
Yeah.
care. But also, at the second you'll have this like ahead of time, you just don't know, and it was awful,
Exactly.
and it's
Exactly.
helpless. Like
Yep.
there's nothing. I mean, I used to have migraines, so I how do you even figure that out?
Oh, yeah,
Um,
totally.
so the good news is you if you're getting pregnant again, if you guys have
Mhm.
another baby and that happens, you'll at least know preventatively.
Exactly what to
So
expect.
that's good. Like, if this
Mhm.
happens, we have a plan. So
Yeah.
Hashimoto's, let's talk a little bit about that. And
Yeah.
then, um, because you're feeling so much better, the next 8 months of her, since then has been great. But the
Yeah.
not losing any weight thing, that's attributed to Hashimoto's?
Yeah, yeah, very much attributed to Hashimoto's. So I went to my doctor. I said, like, I like, what is going on? Like,
Yeah,
I've cut back eating. I drink a lot of water. I'm literally walking a crap ton with a 15-pound child attached to me. So
right.
what is going on? And he's, we had tried a couple of different things, and I was stepping on the scale every morning. And so what I stopped doing, and I had actually figured this out on a weight loss journey, like early 20s, that I build very unhealthy relationships with scales. Um,
Mhm.
and so what I did was I stopped stepping on it, and I would work out to feel good. I would eat less because it made me feel good. I would eat vegetables because it made me feel good. My decisions were because I wanted to feel better. I didn't
Yeah,
want to lose weight. And so as soon as I changed that mindset, my clothes started to feel a little looser. I was able to go down a pant size. I was able to clasp my bra a little bit tighter without popping out everywhere. And, I found that I had more energy. And then I went back to work a few months, like the beginning of this year, I went back to work. And all of a sudden, this whole new sense of purpose came around. I found that when I was sitting at home, it was lovely hanging out with my kid every day, but I wasn't getting anything done. My banking, my finances were all over the place because I didn't have the mental capacity to sit down at a computer and do it. We were buying too many groceries and things were going to waste. I wasn't able to even write when I was on mat leave. Then I go back to work and I'm like, oh, I have this newfound energy and this sense of purpose and organization. And then 30 days later, finances back in a row, our grocery bills are down and our food waste is like next to nothing. I feel better. My pants are a little looser now again. Like, I'm getting in my steps. My kid is going to daycare with a small group of kids. She's loving it. She's like developing leaps and bounds because all of them are older than her. And I'm still able to hang out with her at the end of the day for a few hours. And that quality couple of hours
yeah.
was way more productive than spending 12 hours at home alone with her.
I
Because I'm sitting there tired and I'm like, just play. Now I'm on the ground with her and rolling around. So it was
Yeah,
definitely like going back to work for me specifically, not everybody, but for
right.
me specifically, enabled me to be a better mom. And I'm like, man, can't wait for the next one to come, whenever that's going to come. But then as soon as I can, I want to go back to work, because I feel so much better when I have a million things on my plate versus just take care of your kid and you're going to be perfect. I want to take care of my kid, but I want to save the world and all of their problems too.
I think that's so important to point out that we're not all cut out to do the same thing, and that,
Yeah.
like, if you're a stay-at-home mom, there's guilt and people talk down to you. If you go back to work, there's guilt and people talk
Mhm.
down to you. And like basically, once you become a parent, a mom especially, you're never going to do it right. So
Nope.
figuring out the right thing for you means you don't give a crap about what other people are saying. If you had
No.
forced yourself to stay home and like do the thing that you thought you were supposed to do, you would have been miserable.
Oh, for sure.
And
And
you're
we
not a
wouldn't
good
run.
parent.
No, no, not at all. And nothing would have gotten done. Like, as soon as I started back to work, I've hammered out 10,000 words in for my next book. And they were good words, where I
Yeah,
think I struggled to get 2,000 during mat leave, and they were not good words.
right.
It, like, again, everybody is different. I took 10 months off. I don't know if I'm going to need 10 months for the next time around. But I think at like this 8-month mark, I was ready to go back, but we didn't have daycare lined up. We didn't have like, certain things lined up in order for me to take that leap. And so as soon as I got that organized, and it was back to work, and like back to being able to be productive, and as productive as I was prior to becoming a parent. And that fulfills me. But I
Right.
don't like anybody that does any different than me. Good for you. I
Right.
will support you in that decision, but let me do me without judging me. Um, and most people are okay, but sometimes, like, again, social media, you open yourself up to online opinions that just, here's my opinion and I don't want to
Right.
hear it back. So, that was one of the reasons why we didn't post it to begin with, was because we didn't want to hear people's negative opinions about why did we choose to do this in the way that we chose to do it, because, well, we went about it the way that made sense for us, and it's worked. So, hey, if you want to do that, great. If you don't want to do that, also great. I have a best friend that will refuse to live with somebody before she dates him for a year. And Lord help me, she is my best friend. But I'm like, what does 365 days accomplish that just moving in with somebody, if you care for them and you're aligned in all the right ways? Why 365 days? Not what, maybe 600 days, not 100 days. Like, but she's so attached to that 1 year idea. It makes no sense to me, but I'm like, hey, if it makes you feel comfortable,
Mhm.
then awesome. In a year from now, I'm just going to ask, like, so are you guys moving in together? And I'm just going to bug her about it, jestingly, of course. And she's like, you do that. Bug me about it. I don't care, but that's how I work. And we're stark opposite human beings. We've been friends for over 30 years.
Right.
So, hey, it just goes to show, and she doesn't want to be a mom at all. We're stark opposites, but we
Right.
love each other and we let each other do our things.
Thank you so much for being on today, Miranda. I was so excited. Thank
Me
you for
too.
sharing your story.
Thank you. I'm so happy that I got to be on here today. It was like the highlight of my day when I
Me
woke up.
too.
Great.